You're the guy people call when they need a helping hand, moving furniture, unloading a truck. But lately, your shoulder's been acting up, and you're the one who's calling for help. And that's the moment you realize you can no longer shoulder the load.
The Joint and Spine Center is Cincinnati's leading destination for orthopedic care, with a range of surgical and non-surgical treatments. So when a moment has the power to change the rest of your life, go to the one place with the power to change it for the better, the Christ Hospital Health Network. This changes everything.
The Pound This Podcast is brought to you by the Christ Hospital Health Network. This is the Pound This Podcast, episode 641, How Leah's love for yoga turned into a career in fitness.
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This Podcast with Amanda Valentine.
Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This Podcast. I am Amanda Valentine. My guest today, we were just discussing the pronunciation. It's Leah Weethy, but I'll let you say it the way you said it.
Weethy.
That is such more memorable experience.
Exactly. And usually when we go out or something, it's like, if you put it in a restaurant, it's like vite or wythe or whatever. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of different, but Weethy.
That's where it's like, even with Valentine, somehow people get that wrong.
Which is amazing to me.
I know, right? Where I'm like, could this be an easier name? It's not Valentine.
Yes.
Or Valentimes, but okay.
Valentimes.
So I imagine Weethy is
it's
a lot more difficult.
It's a challenge. Yes.
So I'm surprised that you have not been on this podcast yet. Like, how has that happened that I haven't cornered you and been looking on this podcast?
Well, you know, it's first for everything.
So you work here at Cincy 360.
Yes.
And so I've seen you within the gym. I started coming here in October of 2018.
Okay.
To train with Josh, but that's where it's like I didn't like talk to anybody else. It's hard whenever like, you know, you just have a trainer and I'm like, everybody's busy and doing their thing of like, hey, like, let's come chat it up.
Yes. And I think we try as trainers to kind of acknowledge everybody's clients and, you know, give a head nod or give a smile or, you know, if we have an opportunity to say hi, you know, absolutely. But yeah, it is also at the same time, you're focusing on your own client and then you're also like, you don't want to interrupt somebody's workout. But then, you know, I mean, you can always like make fun of Josh with the client. Like, so the client that he's always down for that.
It's so funny. Like, I don't know, like he just gets so much heat from everyone. Like he just gets made fun of by like me constantly. I mean, on this podcast and in like real life. And then, I mean, why is it so easy to dog on him?
I think because he always looks so serious.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, and I think you just kind of want to poke him a little bit.
I mean, that's what's good though, is he doesn't get mad.
No.
He doesn't get defensive. He just like, rolls with it. And I think that's why. It's like,
I agree.
You can pick and he'll be like, okay.
Just little jabs, little pokes, little, you know, but also because like if he's, he's very focused on what he's doing and concentrating. And sometimes you just want to, you know, somebody's got a very straight face or a very serious face. You just want to come and like get that little smile, get that little jab in.
Or even then, if not the smile, then you just get the stare.
Well, there's that too. That's a whole nother podcast.
Well, because obviously I want to talk all about you.
Yeah.
But since you're bringing up Josh, and Josh has been on this podcast a billion times.
A zillion times.
I mean, I know I'm asking this in a public forum. Josh has been your boss for how long now?
So I have almost been here for 4 years, which really shocks me even to say that. But I started teaching circuit classes in May of 2017. So now we're in March, so it's almost been 4 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I had gotten my certification, my personal trainer certification, but I wasn't training clients yet because, as you know, it's something that you really want to shadow a lot of people, work with other trainers, and really like kind of get your feet under you before you do that. But then I started training clients in July.
Okay.
So it's been 4 years.
So we'll get back to that in a second.
Yeah.
So what's it like having Josh as your boss?
You know, it's actually really great. He's just so knowledgeable. Like he just really knows his stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I would say, as from a boss perspective, like not only does he just really know what he's talking about, but you can go to him anytime with a question. Even if like he's about to walk out the door, it's like, hey man, just 1 second. And he will always stop, turn around, come back, talk to you, give you the time. Like he gives people his time. And I think that's really important, especially when you're running your own business.
Yeah. Have you had bad bosses in the past?
You know, I wouldn't say I've had bad bosses. I mean, bad bosses probably goes back to like the high school jobs. You know,
okay, yeah, which I want to get
talked about Subway, right?
Yes, we both are former sandwich artists.
Sandwich artists, yes. So I would say the bad bosses that I had were those high school gigs, those the yogurt shops and the sandwich shops and the, that kind of stuff.
To be fair though, like I would be pretty angry too if I was managing a bunch of teenagers.
I understand that. And I agree. I get, when you're the teenager, you don't look at it that way.
Yeah.
You're like, God, you suck. But, when you're the adult and you go back and look at it, you're like, wow, that must have been a really hard job.
Well, just like even watching movies that were cool when you were a kid and then watching them from an adult perspective, you're like, these kids I would smack around.
For sure. For sure. And we were those kids, right? Yeah. So yeah.
Speaking of that, like whenever, you were a teenager, were you into athletics? Like kind of what was the beginning of getting to where you are now?
Yes. So I was always in some sort of athletics from the time I was probably 5 years old, just doing like the gymnastics and the ballet and the swimming and the soccer, like that kind of stuff. Throughout high school, I did play soccer. And what else did I do? It was one of those things where my parents had me try out a lot of things, but I never really like honed in on that. Like I wasn't like, I am the volleyball player from third grade to college, like it wasn't that kind of track. It was really more of just like a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But I am also a proud Gen Xer. So I was in the generation where we were outside every day, all day, after school, running up and down the street, roller skating in the street, hitting things with sticks. And, it really was. It was like we were just outside constantly. So I feel like I spent my whole life as a child just running around. So a lot of activity, a lot of athletics. Kind of stopped in college, at least that freshman year.
Yeah.
Definitely gained the freshman 15, like the first semester of college, like just put it all right on there, all the pizza, all the beer, all that stuff, just like immediately. And then my roommate was like, hey, you want to go to step class? Maybe let's go to the gym. Let's go work. And that was really my first introduction to like working out at a gym. Okay. I mean, I had never stepped foot in a gym or in a class before that. It was all just like sports, So yeah, so college then it was like, hey, let's do some step aerobics and, let's go walk around the track and stuff like that. It still wasn't strength training.
Yeah.
I probably didn't get into strength training until my mid-20s.
Okay.
And then it was like, you got your FitWorks membership or your, whatever, and went and kind of pretended like you knew what you were doing. Yeah. Some bicep curls here, maybe a squat. Still more class-based, I would say. But it's always been, moving my body has always been a part of my life, just in different ways.
Yeah. So where did you go to college?
I went to Indiana University. Okay. So I'm a Big Ten Hoosier.
Nice.
Which was good because it was like 2.5 hours away, right? So it was easy to go and be there, but easy to get home if I wanted to.
Do some laundry at home.
If I needed to. Yeah. Actually, it was more of like those trips I would bring my girlfriends home to go to the Gap outlet.
Nice.
We took several road trips from IU to Cincinnati to go to the Gap outlet.
That's awesome. What was your major?
Oh, okay. So I majored in sociology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
You can see what I'm doing with that.
Yeah, right. Most people with their majors.
I like to say I got a College of Arts and Sciences degree, basically. So I went in with some credits from high school and basically had enough credits to graduate in about 3.5 years and was kind of like, I'm kind of done with school. Like I had a good time and then I was like, oh, I'm kind of over it. And so I just graduated with my sociology degree. And then I was a travel agent for a while.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Does that job even exist anymore?
I don't think so.
What was it like being a travel
I don't think
agent?
so. So it was actually really cool because I was a travel agent while I was at IU for a while because there were student travel agencies. I don't know if you ever used those or if you remember those.
I did not travel.
Okay, so there were two really big ones in the United States that actually focused on college students and traveling abroad.
Oh, cool.
So they bought like bulk airfare and like resold it. So like so if somebody wanted to go from Chicago to London, it wasn't like we booked them a flight on Delta. It was like we booked a flight through this umbrella that had already negotiated all these prices for travel. So it was like a cool spin, but like it allowed college kids to get cheaper prices.
Nice.
And travel a lot. So
That's
it was actually
awesome.
really cool. And I got to do some pretty good traveling with very cheap.
What's the coolest place you went?
Wow. That's a great question. My first ever trip to Europe was to Paris.
Ooh.
And I would say, as cliche as people think Paris is, it's pretty freaking awesome.
I know. I just want to go there and just binge on cheese. I just want
cheese and bread and
I just want to go there
pastries and all that delicious stuff. And that's why we work out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, see, I feel like I don't need to know the language, rather just point. 5 of those.
Uh-huh. Pretty much, yes.
Well, that's super awesome. Have you traveled a lot then?
I have. I miss traveling.
Ditto.
Right now. A lot.
Same.
So and you know, there are a lot of places. I mean, obviously there's a million places to go. And it's like, I've been to a couple places in Europe that I really like, but I've never been anywhere in South America or Central America.
Yeah.
Like I've never been
like Machu Picchu, stuff like that.
Yeah. I would love to do that. So I definitely miss traveling a lot.
Hopefully soon.
Fingers crossed.
Oh my God, right? This is the longest I've gone without traveling, and I'm like,
right. I know. So yeah.
So how long were you a travel agent for?
Maybe 2 years. It wasn't a very long stint. But it was very interesting.
What did you go into after that?
So my family owned a popular toy store in Cincinnati that I worked at for 18 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
can you say the name of it? Or?
I can. It still exists, but we don't own it anymore. So King Arthur's Court.
Just drove past that today.
In Oakley.
I've been in there.
Yeah. So my dad bought it in 95. And sold it in 2017.
Okay.
I think. So he had it for over 20 years, and I worked there for 18 of them. So
man,
I basically had saw a whole generation of kids grow up, which was really pretty cool. Yeah. And my daughter was born, you know, after I'd been there a couple years too. So it was a cool place for
that
a little,
seems super fun.
A little kid to grow up. So, but it's retail, you know, so like,
yeah. I know exactly what you're saying.
So I worked in retail for 18 years.
Retail with kids.
Retail with kids for 18 years.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just going to smile and say that.
But you still are smiling. I feel like, working in retail or food service, I've done a lot of food service.
Same.
And it definitely takes a part of your soul away.
It does. And for the millions of things that I learned, like so much there, like about management and about business and about just like so many things. But like, I hated the holidays.
Oh, yeah.
Hated the holidays. So it was like, after I stopped working there, it was like the first Christmas, and I was like, wow,
that's fun.
This is pretty cool. Like, I don't have to worry about things. I can just enjoy it. So yeah. So that was nice. So that was how my segue into yoga and personal training was being in retail for 18 years. And I finally just got to the point where I was just like, I cannot do this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I appreciate it's a family business and like the people that I work with, and we're a family and we've all been together for so long, I was just like, I just can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And it was like, so I made my exit from there, and it was like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
I'm like, free and easy. Like, what's going on? But when I had decided that I was going to leave, was when I found yoga. So there was a little studio that doesn't exist anymore over in Anderson. And I started going to yoga class, and I had done yoga off and on, earlier with videos, with like classes at the gym, you know, like whatever. This was my first time being in a hot studio doing yoga with like people that knew how to do yoga. And I was just like, it was such a stress reliever for me. Like I had just made this big decision of like, I'm going to leave this job that I've been at for 18 years. And I was able to go into this hot room and just like lay down and close my eyes and like breathe and then do an hour-long yoga class. And I was like, I mean, it was really just like the only time I had felt relaxed. And I was like, well, I could do this. Can I do this? What can I do with this? Like where do I go from this? And so then I found Simply Power Yoga, which was the studio that I then started going to, which I actually did my teacher training through. And it was like, the universe kind of like sometimes just brings it all together for you and like speaks to you. And so I went into Simply Power Yoga, which was right at this time, right across the beach, Mont Levy. So like right kind of on the edge of Anderson. Found them, went in to take a class, talked to the woman behind the counter about like, oh, I'm getting into yoga and I was thinking about maybe becoming a yoga teacher. And she's like, oh, we're starting a new session for teacher training like next week.
See, the universe like, lining up perfectly.
It really was kind of amazing. And she's like, get online. You have to fill out this thing. Like you have to fill out a whole like, why do you want to do this? It wasn't just like take my money and sign up. And so I was like, okay, this could be cool. And I ended up getting, into the training. And it was like, when I tell you it's like grown-up therapy, like group therapy, yoga teacher training, it's like, you don't have to do it and become a yoga teacher. You don't have to do it and like make a living at it. It's like, just like, you may just want to do it and like, just learn some stuff about yourself and like where you are in your life and what you want to, and that was like exactly what I needed at that moment. And so it was like at the same time I went into yoga teacher training, 2 different people told me about Josh. Like 2 different people that have nothing to do with each other, are completely in separate spheres. I said, I'm going to do this yoga thing. And then I thought about maybe like being a personal trainer. And they're like, oh, you should go talk to Josh Garrett at Cincy 360 Fitness. I was like, okay. And it was like one person told me, and then like a week later, another person told me. And I was like, it was like, okay, I'll go talk to him. And just like I said before, I was like, I think somebody gave me his email. I think I sent him an email and was like, hey, I know this person and this person. They both said that if I was interested in learning how to become a personal trainer, I should talk to you. And he's like, cool, when do you want to meet up? Again, gave me his time. Like didn't know me from anybody and was like, hey, come over to the gym at noon and we'll talk, gave me an hour of his time and was like, well, I would do this, this, and this. And if you find that you do the training and if you find that you like it and you want to go further, then just hit me back up. And I was like, cool. And that was just kind of like how it came to be. So I was doing the yoga teacher training, and then I started doing the NASM personal training stuff online, and just kind of went from there. Yeah. So
see, that's so awesome. I mean, it is too. Like just to share my weird universe story. Like I'm so curious, and now that I'm like. For like having, now that I work here and I want to pull you guys all in and talk to you individually. And so, that everybody listening to this can like get a feel for everybody at the gym and how the gym is. I'm so curious to hear everybody else's like origin story of how you got here, because it's the same thing I was just telling you and Nick this past weekend where I mean, at the time I had started my podcast, January of 2018.
Okay.
And then a couple months later, things started getting a little wonky at the radio station. And so I kind of put more focus into it. And from there, I was meeting new people and getting people in for interviews and stuff. And I went to an event that I thought I wasn't going to be able to make because I was on the air till 7. And I get there and they paired people off and my person didn't show up. So they're like, just happened to be walking me back to like the cheese plate, and they're like, "Oh, this is Whitney. You should meet her." And I'm like, "Oh, hi."
Right.
And she's telling me about Fuel the Soul and what she
Right.
does. I'm like, "That's so cool. You should come on my podcast." And she's like, "Well, before you do that, why don't you come to where I train and come in for a workout session?" And then I got here, and then I was just like, I'm going to work out with Whitney. And then Josh did a consultation with me. And I'm like, then he's just like, "I will fix you." And I'm like, what?
He took it on as a personal mission.
He did. Because he's like, I
Yes.
had knee issues at the time. I was using exercise as my own escape in a way that I can see now was too much.
Right.
Of like, it was my stress release. It was my escape.
Yep.
And at the time I was going to a different gym, which was one of the first gyms I ever went to, even though my weight loss journey had started years before.
Sure.
I did mostly walking and hiking and running, and that my knee was bad. And so I had to see an orthopedic surgeon. He's like, "You can't go there anymore." So I was going to the Y, and I was, again, like you were saying, like, I was just looking at what people were doing on Instagram and YouTube and trying to figure it out. And I'm like, I'm doing things, I'm getting results, but I know my form isn't correct. I'm obviously hurting myself. And so being at that level, that's where he's like, "Give me a month." And he's like, "Just give me 1 month."
Sure.
Because I'm like, this place isn't the closest to my house.
Right. Right.
The Y is like right next to my
there.
house. And so from there of just like, that's, I was just talking to him about that yesterday or the day before. And then even from that as my things started shifting with the radio station and me making the choice to leave, and like you're talking about, like for me, it wasn't at the same job, but I was in the same career for 20 years. I moved all over the country. It's always what I wanted to do, to make the choice to leave this thing that is so personal to me, and knowing what I was going to lose with my contract, where I wasn't at the time, I wasn't going to be able to keep Pound This. I wasn't going to be able to do another podcast for 6 months. So it was, I had to do at the time, like my lawyer says a YouTube channel is my only option. And, I'm kind of discussing this stuff with Josh. He's like, "Well, why don't we make a studio here at the gym?" And and I was like, for me, I was like, I want to make this hard decision. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then Josh is just like, well, I'll help you figure it out. Because at one point I was just so frustrated, and I'm like, "F this, I'm going to quit and work the front desk at Planet Fitness."
And you're going to go back to being a sandwich artist is what you were going to do.
And that's where Josh is like, no, like, hold on, we can do better than that. So it's again, one of those things of like how the weird way the universe kind of works and aligns you with people, and how things just kind of snap into place sometimes that you don't notice at the time until you look back. So I think it'll be so funny if like Nick and Whitney have
I'm
these
curious
kind of
too.
stories too.
Like, it's like, I don't know their like exact how they found, 360 or Josh. So I'm very curious too.
We're gonna learn together.
I know. I love it.
And since you did that here, and that's what I'm going through right now too, of, getting the certification and shadowing. And now I'm taking on my first few clients and learning, like, how was that at this point in the process for you? Like, where was your head at? Like, how are you feeling through all of this?
So it was really interesting for me because kind of like, what we were talking about, when you kind of you bring in people that or like your husbands or your friends or whoever, and kind of like, run them through a session or run them through a couple of sessions and see how you feel. And so I was fortunate because I had, a bunch of friends at the yoga studio that I was like, "Hey, do you guys want to come in and, do some workouts and see how it goes?" And they did, which was awesome. And some of them still are training with me, which is amazing. When you have a yoga background as well, especially if you're a yoga teacher, which some of these women were, like, you have a really good body awareness, and you have you're kind of hip to it already.
Yeah.
So that was so like lucky for me that I got to start off with training some of these people that actually, they knew what they were doing, in a sense, right? So that was super cool. But then like you would get a stranger. Just somebody that called or came in off the street, and it was like, Josh would kind of pair you up and be like, "Oh, I think you guys will be a good fit." And then it was like, what am I doing? Because we all have imposter syndrome, right?
For sure.
We all, and especially when you're starting something new and it's like, okay, I got my certification. NASM says I'm qualified to train somebody. And it's like, well, that's great. They've never seen me train anybody before,
Exactly.
you know? And so you just have to be confident that, yes, you do know what you're doing and, you know, that you're not going to break anybody and that, you know, Josh is there or somebody else is there to like ask questions to. But yeah, I mean, it was scary. It was definitely scary starting out, especially, you know, when you meet somebody new and you're just like, oh my, you know, how is this going to go? And how do they like me? And am I doing this right? And am I challenging or am I too challenging or am I not challenging enough? I mean, you know, there's a lot of self-doubt. You just have to keep doing it.
Yeah. So how long do you think that it took you to kind of get in the flow?
I would say that's a great question. Some days I feel like I'm still working on it, but no, I would say a year. Okay. I would say a year of like feeling like, yes, I am confident that I got the right plan and I'm doing the right thing. And, you know, does that mean you're perfect all the time? No, you know, none of us ever are. But I would say it was about a year of just like building up more people, getting more sessions in. And then it's a quantity thing too. The more you do it, the more comfortable you feel. Yeah. Which is what's hard about it when we're starting out, right? Because you start out with like, oh, I've got 3 clients. Yeah. You know? And so like you're trying to build momentum or build, you know, that routine. And it's like really hard to do with only 3 clients. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, well, now I have 3 more. Now I have 3 more, you know, so it's just kind of building up to that.
Well, and it's I mean, I'm glad that we both have this feeling too of doing something else for so long. Yes. So it's like when you master something else and you're just kind of like, I know this in and out. Like you can throw anything at me. I got this. Absolutely. To going to the bare minimum level of something new, especially, I mean, like even with like me starting radio, like I know I can see now how exactly hard and all the insane stuff that I put in to where I am now as an adult. But at the time I didn't know where that was going. And now that I can see what the process is and I know how long it takes, right? And you're starting over again, you're just like, that's its own mind game in itself, no matter what you're doing, of kind of doing a whole start my life over again thing of like, that's like, okay.
It is. And it's exciting because it's cool to learn new things. You know, I mean, it's always so interesting to learn all this new stuff, but then it's also so overwhelming. Yeah. Because there is so much. And I think when you're doing it online and in a book and, you know, it's like learn all these muscles, learn all these exercises, learn all this stuff about nutrition, learn all, you know, and you're just, you know, it just starts spinning around your brain and you're just like, oh my God. And then you start practicing it. And it's like, okay, I'm glad I have this base knowledge of all these hundreds of things, but I'm really using 20 of them. Yeah. Here are my 20 basics. And this is the stuff that I need to focus on. And this is the stuff that you put into practice.
Yeah. Well, even that, I mean, it's got to be a difference for you of just even like interpersonal skills of like, this is how I knew how to interact with people at the toy store. But now I'm interacting with people in a different way. Even though you're retail and you're working with the public, it is such a different shift of learning how to maneuver.
It is. And I think I had a good background with that because, you know, because we were a small business and it was very much customer loyalty. And like, so you knew your customers, you know, at the store a lot and you had relationships with them and you talked about stuff. But this is like ratcheting it up a whole nother level because it's people's health and wellness, right? And so you're learning things about people that you're like, wow, if we just met on the street, you maybe wouldn't tell me that. Right. But I understand how it's important in the setting and that I'm glad you told me that and that I need to know that, you know, because we're doing X, Y, and Z. But yeah, it is a different level of communication than when you're in a retail setting. And also, you know, I mean, in a retail setting, you're trying to sell people stuff. Yeah. And it's like, yes, we're a business here, you know, at the studio, but I think helping people feel better is more important Like that's the number one thing.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sell you a zillion sessions.
Yes.
I want you to come in and do your 1 or 2 sessions a week that you feel comfortable with and get as much out of it as possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's also just, what is so amazing about this place that, I mean, I can see it because I'm here and I've been coming here, and now that I see it more and more as I'm like, becoming more of a part of this, that, just that everybody that works here at 360 has so much of like the heart is behind it of like, I will stop what I'm doing. I will help you. I will answer your text message. Yep. It is not this buy my booty program on Instagram and then get out of my life.
Exactly. Exactly.
But it's just so much of like, everybody understands it's so much the lifestyle. It's not just about the time that you spend in here. It's about the time that you spend out of here and being a resource for I can imagine if Nick's client needs something from you or wanted some 100%. Yoga tips that you would help with that. Of like, it's just so much of this community, good vibes feeling that I think that a lot of gyms don't have at all. Sure. Or even some studio classes. I've been to plenty of those, and it's just kind of like, especially if it's corporate owned, of like, get in, get out, keep the machine rolling, and just to find those kind of places where I'm assuming your yoga studio is probably the same.
Absolutely. It's very much a very similar community where people have been coming there for years, and they know, you know the teachers, and you know the other students, and you talk to the other students, and, which is why it's been so hard, I think, for everybody with, COVID, right? Yeah. Because it is, both places are small communities, and it's like you want to have those happy hours, or you want to have those, little events outside of the gym or whatever. And it's just been really hard to not be able to do that, because it's very much a community of people that know each other outside of just coming in and doing a class or doing a session.
Well, I think the past year has shown us how much we really need that.
Yes.
And how much we took it for granted.
Yes.
And now it's like, oh my God, can I just please connect with somebody?
Yes.
Which is why I'm so glad that, even though the gym closed for 2 months, that it hasn't been. And also just 360 just being small, where I'm like, maximum amount of people here, unless there's a circuit class going on, it's like 10.
Yes. Oh,
and so it's like, there's so many people that need the exercise just to get through the mental part of this anyway. And it's the escape, but also the connection, where to still be able to have a place to go and not be where so many other states where you don't have that option.
Right.
And I mean, working out at home is great, but it's like, there's just something it's just not the same.
It's different. It's just different. And you can get a great workout at home, and you can, you can find a million videos on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, but the community aspect of it is definitely, what keeps people coming in and going to places. Because even if we're, we've lessened the numbers in our circuit class so we could keep everybody safe and keep everybody distant, but it's still like the same 6 people are usually coming, and they're happy to see each other and, talk about what's going on with you and what, and like, let's go for a walk sometime, or let's, there definitely are relationships outside of the gym, between our clients and, the trainers and stuff like that too. So
outside of 360, what's yoga studio do you work at?
So I work at, it's called Practice Yoga Cincinnati. And it's in Anderson. It's right in kind of a little shopping area at Beachmont and 5 Mile. And we have in-studio classes. I mean, our numbers are a little bit lower right now just because of taking precautions. But we also offer virtual classes and on-demand classes. So basically what that means is when I teach a class, have a laptop in front of me and it's recording. And then so people can jump on it virtually at the time. So like if noon works for you on Mondays, you can come to my class and take it virtually. If it doesn't work for you, I record it and it uploads to the site, and then you can get it on demand. Nice. So it's really cool. I mean, it's just another way we've all had to pivot.
Yeah, right.
But being able to continue to offer that to the community is really cool.
What kind of classes do you teach?
So right now I just teach one class, and it's a yoga boot camp.
Ooh, that sounds like an oxymoron.
So, right? So it's fun because it's a short class. It's a 45-minute class. I change it up every week. We kind of start with the yoga warm up, like, we're doing some sun salutations, we're warming up the body, we're doing some yoga stretches and things like that. But then we use small weights if you have them at home or if you're in the studio, and we do strength stuff and cardio stuff and core stuff. So it's basically like a mini kind of circuit class with yoga thrown in as well. So it's a nice hybrid of both things. I definitely wouldn't say come to it if you want to relax, because that's not the point.
Those are the yoga classes I like. Restorative,
and we offer those.
Classes.
Yes, we have yin, we have restorative, we have slow flows, we have all that good stuff too. But this is like, okay, if you want to get a little butt kicker in, while not feeling like, oh, I don't have a 50-pound weight at home, so I can't do, this. It's like we're using 5 pounds or 3 pounds or 2 pounds.
And you feel it, just like I've done bar classes before.
Just like a bar,
just like painful.
You feel it. Absolutely, absolutely. So.
One of my favorite yoga classes I've taken, which I don't even know is possible in COVID or if that's even a thing anywhere in Cincinnati. This is when I was in Denver, and this is literally the most relaxed I've ever been in my life. It was called Pins and Poses. And it was a restorative yoga class. And then afterwards they came by and did acupuncture on everybody. And then you just laid there in it. It was the most chill I think I've ever been in my entire life.
That's amazing.
It was awesome.
That is incredible. Yeah, I would be down for that. No doubt. Yeah. Although I doubt that you could do that now.
I know. I guess you could if you just had a few people, I guess.
It would have to be a small number and you have to sign a lot of waivers probably.
Yeah, I had to sign waivers, but it was,
That sounds amazing though.
Yeah, I felt like I just melted into the floor, and I'd never had acupuncture before and I haven't had it since. But it was just like of going through the flow and then having that done was, I'm like, oh my God, sign me up for that all day.
It sounds amazing.
That's why I'm in for and that's where, just with my jacked up body, doing just like a flow class is just so brutally painful because I know I need it, but it's just kind of like, I can't. And then I get in my own head of like, and I feel like the yoga classes I've been to, which has not been a ton, is like some people are so hardcore. Absolutely. And then you get in there, and this is pre-COVID, and you're like right up next to these people, and they are just taking it to a level beyond and then I'm like, oh my God.
It's crazy, right? And it's like, we all compare ourselves to everybody else all the time, everything we do. And it's like, then you're at a yoga class and you're like, hey, I just want to try this out. And I can speak as a teacher. We're like, great, I'm so glad you're here. Like, here are some props. Here are some things to help you. And if you're just looking at the person next to you and going, I can't do these things that they're doing, then you're just going to be like, I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. And so it's tough. I mean, it's like, people find out I'm a yoga teacher and they're like, oh, I can't do yoga. I'm like, everybody can do yoga.
Yeah.
Everybody can do yoga. Maybe you can't do Instagram yoga.
Yeah.
But you can do yoga.
Well, and that's where the teacher is so important, because one of my first introductions to yoga, which this is my friend's fault at the time. Again, this was in Denver. So, I was, over 100 pounds heavier. I was not doing any sort of exercise. I only went because she wanted to go. And it was like the first class was free. And so I went from 0 yoga classes in my life to a hot yoga class and to a 90-minute yoga class.
No.
So dumb decision number 1. But 2, the instructor was terrible. So it's like, okay, here's like this classroom full of Adonises and then these 2 overweight women.
Right.
Where I'm like, I don't know. I didn't, I'm slipping all over my mat. I didn't know I needed to bring something else. I had no idea what I was getting into.
Right.
And this woman at one point she's like, I know you all want to take a drink of water, but don't do it. She's like, you better hold back. And I'm like,
are you serious?
And I'm like, oh, she did afterwards, like knowing what I know now, I'm like, she trying to murder me? Like what an awful thing. And like not giving any sort of modifications to me while I'm there like dying and slipping in my own sweat. And the whole time I'm like, just don't run out of the room. Just try to make it. Just don't run out of here. And then I made it. But I was like almost crawling out of there at the end. And
I can imagine.
The women in the locker room, they're like, this was your first time? They're like, oh my God, are you okay?
What a terrible first experience, right?
Yeah.
So you leave that and you're like, I'm never doing yoga again.
Exactly.
Yoga sucks.
Yeah, right?
And it's all... You have to, it's like you have to have the courage to go, and then like to not have anybody respond to
where she's just like, don't drink water and not giving, like there was no
crazy.
sort of, like she's just, that's where I'm like, hey, I don't need special attention, but can you like not let me die over here?
That would be appreciated.
Yeah. So I mean, I went to more classes after that, but it was like that where, again, like when you just, the different, I mean, it's for knowing the difference between a good comedian and a bad comedian.
Right.
When you go to like an open mic and you're just like, this person, whoa, I can appreciate somebody that's good. Like when you have a fitness instructor of somebody that is good versus like they're collecting a paycheck.
Exactly. And I mean, it takes you have to have two things, I feel like, to get to that point. You have to want to get to that point. Like you want to be good at your job and you want to help people, and you have to just keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
You have to just practice more and more and more. And that was like kind of the cool part about yoga teacher training, was it was all just like, I mean, yes, we were learning so many things, but it was also just practicing. And I mean, it's even different now. I mean, this was 4 years ago when I got certified, where I got my training, but you know, things have things change all the time, and it's like you have to roll with that and like adapt with that. You know, I mean, when we were doing teacher training, it was all about adjusting people. It was like going over to people and like moving them into a pose the correct way, using air quotes, you know? I mean, because there was this idea of like, oh, if you're going to do this pose, it needs to be this way. That has changed so much just even from 4 years ago. Like there is a lot more of like, everybody's body is different.
Yeah.
Your bones are different. Your joints are different. They line up differently. Everybody's not going to get in the pose the same way. And as a teacher, you have to communicate that to people so they're not looking at their neighbor and going, well, I'm not doing it like her, so I must be doing it wrong. Yeah. And it, you know, so it's just like all of that stuff. But like it's really different now, which is good. Yeah. It's modified, right? Like you got to modify.
So speaking of like growing and moving forward like that, I mean, I don't know if you have the answer to this, but like where do you want to move forward to? Like, are you want to stay in personal training and yoga? Like, do you see this as like long term? Like, what are your goals?
So it's really hard for me to be like, I have this one specific goal, because things are so kind of, I don't want to say up in the air, but like I have a daughter who just started college this year. So a lot of my thinking is kind of around her and her, like, what is her life going to look like in the next few years? Not that I'm going to like stalk my kid to wherever she goes, but you know, I mean, it's like when you think about, you know, what's important to you, you know, what's one of the things that's really important to me is like being in her life and having her in my life. So it's like, you know, if all of a sudden I'm not going to be like, hey, I'm moving to Florida to do this, blah, 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 you know, if she's in Chicago or Cincinnati or wherever she is. So like that part is kind of up in the air as far as like, what do I see? But I mean, I'm going to keep doing yoga, you know, and personal training, like as long as there are people that want to be helped, you know, I guess I should say. I mean, I want to help people. I want people to have the tools and the power to make the changes in their life that maybe they're having trouble making right now. And if I can help them do that, then I'm just going to keep doing that for as long as people want my help.
That's awesome.
I guess is a good way to say it. But yeah, I mean, you know, we've lived in Cincinnati for, you know, our whole lives basically, except for leaving to go to college. And, you know, I would be lying if I said I didn't want to someday live by the ocean or live by a lake or live, you know, somewhere. But, you know, that's way down the road.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's down the road.
I mean, yeah, living by the ocean would be pretty awesome. Yeah. But it's also like, it's so interesting to say that because like I feel that same thing too. But then actually like living in Oregon and then visiting coastal towns where you're just like, oh, well, coastal towns, whenever the weather isn't so great, I'm like, dude, is this really a choice that I would want to hang here? I mean, the Pacific Northwest is its own animal too, though, with weather. But it's like, you know, where the grass is always greener.
Always greener. Sort of I know it is. I know. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy, I've met so many cool people. I've learned so much from so many people, like yoga teachers, personal trainers, class instructors, my clients, you know, just like, I just feel like it's really changed my perspective and like my vibe.
Yeah.
You know, as like weird as that is to say, of just like trying to be that space for people that, you know, hey, if you want to learn some things and, you know, if you're feeling stuck or if you feel like you want to make this change or that change, like I can help you in these ways.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm an expert. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but like I can help you in these ways.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I will say this about Cincinnati, since I've kind of lived like everywhere.
Yeah.
And I've been here 6 years now. Out of every place I lived, this is where the only place I've seen this much of a community of people that are like, I want to help you, or people to learn
That's awesome.
from. And just exactly what you said of just kind of, you know, I guess because Cincinnati's kind of like a big small town sort of vibe.
Yes.
And I mean, I grew up in Illinois outside the St. Louis area, and that's how people kind of describe St. Louis. With St. Louis isn't terribly different from Cincinnati, but sorry, I think St. Louis sucks compared to Cincinnati. But maybe it's just because I grew up around there.
Well, yeah, that's
just
fair.
my
That's fair.
Personal opinion. Sorry, St. Louis. But yeah, it's just like, it's just amazing. The people, especially in the health and wellness and fitness community in Cincinnati, which is also just makes this podcast possible. There's just so many good people to talk to and to view as just like people to learn from or mentors. And it's like, I mean, I've discovered this is the 7th state that I've lived in, that it's like that's rare. And I haven't really come across that a ton, not to knock every other place I've lived, but I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people, just even in the conversations we've had and with Whitney and Nick and you know, and like just talking about like you know people, and then people are willing to give their knowledge and their time. And it's so rare that somebody's like, sorry, I just can't do it. Like, I just can't, you know, I mean, and obviously I respect people's time, and, you know, everybody should say no when they need to say no. Yeah. but I do feel like, just especially like you said, in the health and wellness and fitness community, people are pretty giving with their time and their willingness to just sit down and talk with you and share ideas. And
I haven't got the vibe from anybody, at least anybody I've talked to, of just like my gym versus your gym.
Yeah.
Like, or any of that of like,
for sure.
I feel like everybody, at least that I've talked to, has the just general of like, oh yeah, what do you need me to do?
Yeah.
So
agreed.
That's super cool, because as being a new person from this perspective of the health and fitness industry, it seems like there's just a lot of douchebags.
No comment.
I'm talking about like more the Instagram thing, you know what I mean? Of just like the industry as a whole has its own host of problems, as every industry has. But it's like, you would think that and again, I guess it's just into the crowd you fall in. There's a lot of room for intimidation. I know more than you, sort of thing. So it's cool to not only have that in Cincinnati, but especially here at 360 to kind of, really support that vibe of like, we all got each other's back.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that being said, if people are interested in yoga with you, personal training with you, it's the best way to get a hold of you.
So for personal training, I would say shoot an email to our kind of standard email, which is info@cincy360.com. Is that right?
Cincy360
Fitness. Sorry. info@cincy360fitness.com. I am on Instagram, aren't we all? At Leah Trainer 360. So you can find me there too. Shoot me a message. And then the yoga studio they work for is called Practice Yoga Cincinnati. So they have a website, which is just practiceyogacincinnati.com. So you can sign up for classes there. I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for finally being on my podcast.
I'm so happy to. It was super fun.
Cool. Well, and then I'll see you at work.
Yes, ma'am.
AmandaValentineBites.com